YouTube channel. My name is Roxanne, the Tiny Taster, and today's recipe is caramel custard. So this caramel custard or caramel pudding or creme caramel or flan, whatever you call it, this European dessert is really popular. And I love how we Parsis have just adopted it and made it our own, but it's not a Parsi recipe. It is very much an international recipe. You see it everywhere on all menus, and it's very simple to make. Now you can make this in individual molds or ramekins, or like me, you could make it in one big dish. The choice is yours. It's exactly the same. Don't forget to check the link in the description box. It has all the detailed ingredients and amounts and measurements. As always, it's a link to my website. I write down everything. And if you like this video, as always, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, leave me a comment and share it with all your friends. So without any further ado, let's get cooking.
We'll start by making the caramel for our caramel pudding, the most essential part of the pudding. You start by melting sugar in a thick bottomed pan. I've used a non-stick pan, it's just easier. And heat your sugar on a low flame till it starts to melt, and then slowly mix it around till you get that nice brown goldeny syrup. At some point, some people like to add a little splash of water so that it doesn't become too dark a color just before the caramel is done. So I've done that as well. You don't have to, but you can for a lighter custard color. And then just pour this entire golden caramel syrup into your baking dish or your mold. I've used one big baking dish, but if you're using individual ramekins to make individual portions, then you'll add them to each ramekin equally. Swirl it around so that it covers and coats the entire base of your baking dish, and then just set this aside and let it set and harden while you continue with the rest of your custard. In another thick bottomed pan, you will add your milk and your sugar, and you will heat this gently so that the sugar melts and mixes into the milk. You don't need to boil this, just heat it enough for the sugar to melt, and then set this aside and let it cool, because we will add our eggs to this, and you don't want to add eggs to very hot milk. It will scramble, so make sure this sets aside and comes down to room temperature. In another bowl, add 2 eggs and 1 yolk. You don't need the extra white, but you do need that extra yolk. And then mix it all together so that it scrambles, and beat it up nicely so that everything mixes well. And then once your milk is cool, you will add this beaten egg mixture to your milk and sugar mix. Add in a little bit of vanilla essence for that extra flavor, and then mix it all well till everything combines. Now, a lot of recipes and a lot of people I know like to strain their custard so that if there's any residual bits of egg yolk, it gets caught behind and you're left with a nice, smooth, silky custard. But I don't think it's needed. I think it's quite all right if you have some odd bits, a little bit of imperfection, add some character to your custard. But I've just strained it so that you can follow these instructions for a smooth pudding. You can do it if you like, or you could leave it as is. The choice is yours. Now we're going to add this custard to your baking dish with the caramel that has set nicely. It's hardened. You just pour this custard mixture right till the top, and then we're going to cover it with aluminum foil. You need to cover this tightly to make sure that there's no air or anything that gets inside, because this is actually going to cook in your oven in a steam bath. I'm going to show you what that is, but just make sure that it is covered and sealed tightly. Now you'll take a slightly bigger pan than your baking dish, and it has to be a little bit high because you're going to fill this with hot water. I mean, not fill it completely, but it needs to be about 1 inch thick. And then you're going to pop this into the oven, and you're going to cook this, or rather bake this, at 180 degrees for about 50 or 55 minutes. Once it's done and it comes out, it's going to be really hot, so let it cool. And then after it comes to room temperature, you're going to pop this into the refrigerator for at least 3 to 4 hours. And then once it's cooled, you're going to open it up from this covering. You can see that the custard has set nicely. Sometimes it's slightly wobbly, it's sometimes not. It depends on how long you've baked it for, but either ways it works. I like to take a blunt knife or an offset spatula and then just run it around the edges so that it's easier to unmold and the pudding doesn't get stuck. Now this is the slightly tricky part, and I had to do this off camera, but you just put your serving plate on top and then ever so gently flip it over like this, and then very carefully jiggle a little, wiggle a little, and then slowly unmold your caramel custard, and voila, there you have it. So I honestly thought that my custard was a little bit tiny, like in height. I didn't think it was high enough, but that really depends on your baking dish and how big or small it is and how much custard you fill to the top. So don't be shy. Even if you make a little bit extra and you have more milk, you'll just have a thicker, larger custard and it'll still be delicious. So as you can see, the top is nice and light brown, so that's why we added the water to give the caramel a slightly lighter color. And then I've cut a piece just to show you how little jiggly and wiggly it is. This is my favorite part. I love it. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe, share it with all your friends, and I will see you guys very, very soon.